And that changed things because in January, I actually got a position at Harvard. And I feel like Twitter is like a huge like treasure that I just found out. Put that on LinkedIn, and then I got like tons of people reaching out to me. Oh, when I want to get into Harvard, how to get in this and that. Try to keep your attachments to one attachment. So when I said two attachments in Stanford, the email went into spam and they never received it. Programming languages sounds scary.
Hey guys, this is Siddharth and you're watching College Companion, where we talk about lesson on colleges, courses, and career options. And today we have a very special guest with us. We have with us Nikita Ghodke, and she has been involved in a lot of initiatives and has been building a science community of her own, and you know have been doing amazing things. And she will help us guide about the area opportunities that are there in America or in India, and her work with those universities and how her experience has spanned, and maybe that will help us to build our portfolio better and reach out for these opportunities. Welcome, Nikita. Glad to have you here.
I'm super excited to be here too. I mean, this is an amazing initiative to like talk more about such awareness and opportunities.
Amazing. Thank you for giving us your time and agreeing for this interview. So first of all, a little bit about your background. I think you have a bachelor's in psychology, journalism, English literature. What's that about?
So it's very popular course in India where we can do triple majors. Like people have an honors, we're literally doing a literature, like a whole major in a subject. So I did majors in English literature, journalism, and psychology. And the reason I ventured into it is because journalism for the writing, English literature because it's a lot to do with the way you think, philosophy and stuff, and psychology because I love the subject since my 11th and 12th. So that's where I did my bachelor's in. But sadly, we never realized research is a subject that we could go into, especially the university I came from. And so I have been interested in research from my first semester. And I think I got into it because I love reading, like something about like some curious thing, like, oh, why does this happen? Why does that happen? And I got into research, and I sadly had no mentors to help me. And being the pandemic batch, which is the saddest thing in 2021, we didn't get any exposure to go out. So everything was virtual for us. And so because of that, I didn't have not even a single group project that we were supposed to do. So I was like, what am I supposed to do in life? And I was so ready to like, let's go with masters and then PhD. And one fine day on LinkedIn, I realized this girl called Anshita Singh, who's currently right now a PhD student in Virginia University. And I remember she posting about she getting into a research assistant position at Columbia. And I remember saying, how is that possible? How, I mean, are you allowed to get these positions? And as someone that was just graduating, I remember sitting there like, I don't think I can ever get into these universities. Like, who will take me? I'm nothing. So I went with the same, everybody paying, like 3 to 4 thousand for an internship that we say in India. And it was sad because it didn't really help me. But I started realizing that Twitter, this is the whole platform of Twitter where it's all academics. And I remember falling in love with it. And I started navigating through it and understanding how people tweet, what are the resources and opportunities available. And then I started understanding what PhD programs are, what is research assistant, like what are the duties you do and stuff. And then I started venturing into these things. I did follow her a few things about her tips and maybe like how she went about it. But I feel like the pandemic, when you apply to labs, it was very different. Like right now, children, like people who want to go, cannot do research because it's in person. You can't just go and tell them, I want remote position. It's become a little tough. But there is a knack in how you write these letters and you can actually get them. Like I got it during the year that the pandemic was just like, yeah, it's over, we're going in person. And so that's what shocks people more to understand how did you get yourself a research assistant remotely when everything is going in person. And I would tell them one thing. I'm like, if you're really interested, your letter or your like cover letter, your cold email, everything will speak. How you express yourself matters. But we do not know how it works. We do not know how to write a cover letter. I mean, these are not things you're taught in college, right? Like nobody tells us, oh, CV is an important skill, or writing a cover letter is an important skill. And so again, navigating the whole thing. So it was a very trial and error for me for like 6, 7 months. I used to get rejection left and right about, unfortunately, we don't have space, or just ghosting. And it was pretty upsetting because then you start losing interest. But I changed my whole application, I think, in December 2021. And I realized that maybe I'm not writing it proper. So I made a format. When I started with introduction about myself, a few lines, I focused more on why I like their work more. And then I started with, I wish I could get on call with them if they feel like we have potential. And that changed things. Because in January, I actually got a position at Harvard. I mean, it took me 2 months to get in because there are two interviews and one whole process of getting in and the offer letter. But I think I screamed when I got in. Because I remember it was in Feb. I was sitting at home at like late in the night, like 2:30, 3:30 a.m. And I just scroll through my Gmail and I see an offer letter, welcome to Harvard. And I was like, my heart just skipped a beat. And I remember just screaming, and I'm like, oh my God. And at the same time, I also got into Stanford. I was like, oh my God, what's happening? Like, there's so many things happening together. And then I realized, okay, this is the knack of getting in. Like, it doesn't honestly matter, like, if it's in person or remote. It's on how you portray what you have. And again, when I say this, I don't mean that I had like thousands of skill sets. I just started learning art. And for someone that's from humanities, programming languages sounds scary. Like, trust me, I am scared of Python. I'm like, anybody tells me, oh, we need someone with Python, I'm like, how am I going to learn this? you know? But it becomes slowly, it comes to you as flow when you go with art. Like when I started learning art, it came slowly, it got better. There are beautiful resources out there. But programming language is something that scares humanities students at least. And so everybody thought I must have some beautiful CV to get into Harvard. I actually had nothing in my CV apart from few internships where I could do literature review or maybe do behavioral data coding, and that was it. What actually got into Harvard, I think, was my dedication to research or wanting to do more, my knowledge on things, because I started reading a lot of these things and understanding where my research interests were. And so I started venturing into these things, and slowly everything started working out. All those labs that didn't respond to me that I reapplied started responding back. So I realized that your cold email matters. How you address someone, how you tell them that this is something you're interested in matters. And so I made sure that if I got in, I was going to help everybody. And that's what happened. I put it on
Yeah.
Twitter and it blew up.
Yeah.
It blew up. That tweet blew up.
Yeah.
Like I just put it in caps saying I got into Harvard. And I put that on LinkedIn, and then I got like tons of people reaching out to me. Oh, when I want to get into Harvard, how to get into this and that. So I made a website with resources put together of everything with how to apply to grad school, what is a CV, what's the difference between resume, how to write a cold email. I've also put up my own template up so people know the reference, because I feel like transparency and open science is something that's super important, and we should inculcate that in India, but it's going to take some time for us to go there. But at least we could start from our side. And then I started talking about how all this resources were not accessible, so started working towards it on my own. And as a person with disabilities, it has been tough for me, and I'm very open about my experiences because I feel like there's nothing to hide. That doesn't make me any less of a person, although I have been discriminated like 2 to 3 times in an
Mm.
academic institutions. Like my 11th grade, the university that I was in, they actually just said no to me the moment they realized that I can't walk free here.
Oh my.
Like they were straight up like no. So I had to repeat a year. And for someone, that felt like my whole world was crashing. And that
Yeah.
happened again in another in-person lab. They were non-inclusive. Like no
Mm.
staircase was there, and I can't take the staircase.
Yeah.
And it was terrible. And so, like, these underrepresented population doesn't really get through. Like the
Mm.
disabled, like people from the community. So I realized that if I'm open to mentorship, it could be anyone and anything, like be it your social economic background, be it your disabilities, and so started empowering them. And so throughout 2022, I have helped so many people, like most people that have gone into labs. And I've been so happy to hear that because, it's important to do research. I mean, it's one thing if you're going to go do a PhD, but I feel like everybody should get that space to be like, oh, if research is something they want to go into. So then, yeah, I started working to UCLA after that in summer, which was an amazing lab. And then I got into IIT Gandhinagar, which was surprisingly beautiful and amazing. I love them. Like, I think I would thank that lab so much because they got that stigma out of how Indian labs are. Because I've had such
Mm.
bad experiences with Indian labs, I was so afraid that IIT Gandhinagar would never accept me. And then they gave this beautiful, like welcome, and we worked well. So I was like, okay, labs are pretty open. But so things are working out like this.
Amazing.
And then I realized that there are a lot of labs in India
Yeah.
apart from these, people don't know about.
Yeah.
And so me and my colleague, Pooja Kulkarni, just put together a list of labs. We, as soon as we found anything, we put on cognitive science, psychology, some on behavioral. And the lab has at
Yeah.
least we have like 58, 59 labs. I mean,
Yeah,
that's so amazing.
that was a very good
Yeah,
attempt. I think amongst
yeah,
my peers also we were discussing that this was a great initiative. And thank you so much for
yeah.
running us down to the 2 years of amazing ups and downs and a story that would be beneficial for everyone that's hearing. But now to dissect the whole process. So I hear that
Hmm.
cold email, when it comes, like the opinions are divided. At least on Twitter, I see that
Hmm.
some of the people are against it, for it. What's your viewpoint about it?
I think you should go for it. I mean, there's no harm in it, right? I think cold email is like the first shot of someone telling this is how you are and this is what you're interested in. Go for it. I mean, it's always going to be trial and error. Like we're never going to have the right and wrong answers. There's not a certain way as well to go for it, when you approach these things. But I feel like it works out at least 70 to 30 times. Like 70 times it does, and 30 maybe it might not work out. So in this way, I make a judgment call. What I do is sometimes I would just check in with the lab manager, because usually there's a lab manager in these labs, and ask them and inquire if there are positions. Or if I feel like this is the grad student that I want to apply to, then I would directly send them the email. And sometimes to the PI, if I'm sending, I would kind of make the email a little shorter, because I know that they don't really have time if not to read. So this is something that I think about when it comes to cold emails.
Amazing. And I think I'll also add your website's link. I think it has a
Go
flurry of
ahead.
good
Yes.
resources. Uh,
Yes.
so, so yeah, besides cold email, so in the cold email itself, what are the key parts? I mean, you might have already covered it in your blog, but are the key parts that you think are important? Like signature, you can add your website link there. Uh, Salutation, and like what is your sort of template like?
So, like in my template, honestly, the major important thing I think is to mention that you have gone through their research. Like, nobody wants to just have another email to them. They want to know that you're interested because they've read your publications, they know your work, they follow it, and they're keen about going the same area. I think that's one sentence. Another one paragraph that I write in the last is usually that I would love to get on call for the above to talk more about it, because you don't want to cramp up the cold email, because then two lengthy emails would be obviously be ignored. Another important thing that I do want to point out is that try to keep your attachments to one attachment. So when I said two attachments in Stanford, the email went into spam and they never received it. And so I was like, okay, so are you telling me all the 30 labs I applied to, like, because of didn't go through? So I feel like our cold email, writing a cover letter should be cold email and put your CV. And I think this can also work when you're going for PhD advisors, like when you're approaching them. Like, just go with one attachment, not have too many, because it will feel like they're ghosting you, but in reality, they probably haven't received a message or received your email. So that is something that is important. And mentioning a few bits about your background, like, maybe which college you come from, what are your interests, or what is your experience, matters. Even if it's as small as, oh, I've just read literature review, it matters.
And besides all these parts in a general application setting where they
Mhm.
require an application, have you gone through a situation where they ask for references or like a letter of recommendation in RA
Yeah,
application?
yeah. So in my Stanford interview, she did ask me for a reference, and I was working that time in an in-person lab at an EEG-based lab in Bangalore. And so I asked my supervisor, ki she's gonna ask me some questions, and she just wants to check my background and stuff. And they went pretty well. I don't know what they asked, but it seemed like it went good, and so I got selected for that. But yeah, they sometimes do, but it's very rare that they do. Like if you're working remotely, the chances are they might not ask you, but if you're working in person full time, there is a chance they will ask you, because these are not paid, by the way. These are unpaid positions. And those are paid, which is in person. And I remember asking this question to Harvard, why is it unpaid when I'm putting in my time? And they mentioned that these are government funded positions, yeah, projects, and these are not able to transfer to different countries. So these are unpaid. But the good thing is that these are fewer hours compared to like part time. Like my hours at lab in Harvard is basically around 6 to 8 hours in a week, and at UCLA it was like 4 5 hours a week. So they all depend lab wise.
Thank you. And if we compare your experience with IIT Gandhinagar, which is like a sort of a cream a la cream in the Indian setting,
Yeah.
and Harvard and Stanford, which are worldly renowned, then how, if you can, I mean, I know it's difficult, but if you can compare a bit like
It
between the two
is tough to
experiences.
it is tough to say, but then like I feel like both the places I felt nice. I think I felt a little more homely with IIT Gandhinagar. I won't lie. I think it also could be because, culturally and country wise, because it just felt like I could connect with them and we had little more informal conversations compared to Harvard. But work wise, both of them are flexible, both of them are open, and I think I equally enjoyed working at both the places. Like they were inclusive. That's something I don't find in a lot of Indian universities and labs. Like I because of my disability, mental health concerns can be an issue for me. And so I can't work 24/7 or like be every day there, and I can't even sometimes sit on a chair. And so this is some things that I mentioned to them, and they were very open to it, which I didn't expect. So I think both the labs, my experience has been good, and I want people to compare which was better, because honestly, like both of them are really good at their places. Like it's really amazing.
Amazing. It's good to know that in India there are some places where you could have good
Yes.
experiences when it comes to research.
Yeah.
Being a person who would require some assistance at times when it comes to
Yep.
infrastructure and uh,
Yep.
as such. And I really like your initiatives. I mean, I came across your Twitter 1 year ago when it blew up thanks to
Yeah.
your selection in Harvard. So as a communicator, you have talked about the research labs available in India and abroad, and how the process is like, and you are sort of curating a list as well. You talked about it briefly earlier.
Yeah. Yeah.
So can you just talk
So I'm
about it more, so
actually
that, yeah, can you talk about it a bit more?
in a progress on making an initiative, which is more going to be like on the lines of underrepresented population around global south. And so what we're going to do is to try to have mentorship programs set up, and just resources for and by people that are from these, developing nations. Because what happens is that when you have someone that's from a Western country, while they're a great ally and they can help you, there are things they do not understand. And no matter how much helpful they are, there's going to be a gap in these things. And so what we decided to do is that, make up an initiative where we have these resources put up for like cold email, or it could be just how do you get these opportunities, how do you ask someone, how do you ask someone if they're open to international applicants. Like you can't just Twitter DM them and say, because some of them don't respond. And what are the things that are expected from you, what is something that you could do on your own. Because a lot of time people don't know that there are softwares, by the way, for psychology assignments. And like they keep asking me, how did you do this experiment online? And I tell them there is open sesame, and they're like, what is open sesame? And I was like, okay, I get it, I shouldn't be judging, I was in the same spot one time. And so to like inculcate this resources into a manual where we talk about all open science initiatives and open sources softwares and things that they can access to, and so they can become better researchers. Because I know not all of us come from like universities that equipped us with these things. And so at least if these are open, we can at least access them and learn and understand. And there are amazing people on Twitter, by the way, that have done so much work. I mean, to be very honest, I will sound very funny when I say this, but I use Twitter like my Google academic search. I literally use keywords to search things. Mind you, all the resources I have on my website are from Twitter search. I have literally searched our resources. You will find a bunch of threads, and you'll be surprised at how many there are there. It could be just for data science, psychology, people from non-psychology, like everything and anything. And I feel like Twitter is like a huge like treasure that I just found out. So I feel like most of things are there. It just requires people to like search these things and like put together. So one of my initiative is that to like sort of work for the students and like have a space just for them. Because a lot of times people come approach me while I'm
Mm.
happy to help. It has been tough to do it alone, and I don't want to charge someone for these things, because I know outside people charge like 40, 50,000 for just reading an SOP, and they don't know these things. But I mean, you can get it free on the internet. Why do you have to pay 60,000 for it? And I do understand that some people come from lower income and stuff, and I don't want money to be an issue, for them. They're really talented. And so that's one initiative I'm working on. And another initiative that we actually have just put it out is on infant studies. So if you know, in India, we don't really have a lot of infant studies related, like all the labs list I made, none of them, it's just one lab, just none of them has something to do with children. And even if they do, it's not like their main focus. And because of this, what happens is that there is this gap between people that are interested in child psychology and research versus child psychology just in general. Like they feel like, oh, there's no research done here, so we'll just go into counseling psychology. And that's a problem, because I am interested in infant studies and there's not much done in it. And there's no representation. There's only one professor in Ashoka that does, and she does brilliant work. But we need more such labs. And so me and my other colleague Munna have started this initiative for now, which is the Journal Club. And we're going to be having underrepresented people like PhD student, master student give up their own research or talk about research that inspired them, of a person of color, to like talk about that reason and present it more. And this way we are trying to promote more like someone to get confident talking in front of people. Secondly, how to do representations of these things, presentation formats, how these are, and stuff like that. And we are focused more on infant studies, toddlers, and developmental completely, but we are trying to promote it more because this is a problem in India. We don't really have a lot of it. So these are two major initiatives that I'm looking at right
Wow, so much going on.
Yeah.
I'm always looking up to you, and your Twitter is always a treasure trove for me as well.
Yeah.
Whenever you sort of like or retweet something that is at the end of the day ends up being relevant for my self as well. Uh,
I'm
and I think
glad.
and I think you also talked a bit more about Twitter. You also had a presentation somewhere
Yeah,
about.
I gave an invited talk in Nigeria on how to navigate Twitter because they
Wow.
found it really tough. Like, to make an account. They thought academic Twitter was another app. So I remember getting this doubt oh, I didn't find the app on Play Store. I'm like, oh no, 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 it's not an app. It's a community you form through the algorithm. Once you search someone and you like and it goes on, they're like, oh, like that. But how
Mm.
do you join it? And so I made full slides and a guides about it as to how to go about it. How do you search people? What is the retweet, what is quote tweet, because these are things I learned recently as well. And how do you make a thread, and how do you tag people and stuff like that. So
Wow. It's it must have been such a good experience. Like we go on with so many assumptions when we talk to people like, okay, academic Twitter, and people like looking for what is academic Twitter. And
yeah,
sometimes we are so
yeah.
surprised by some assumptions that we make that sort of like, okay, that should have been all
Yeah,
right.
that was actually a shocker because I feel like when I looked at Nigeria, I realized India is so much like we're ahead. We keep telling
Mm.
ki, we don't have this and that. I think as an underdeveloped country, they have fewer resources compared to us. And so talking to them made me realize that I had to go from the scratch as to what Twitter is, like how do you make an account, to how do you add people to everything. Like if I was to probably talking to Indian students, my approach would have been slightly different. But the kind of
Mm.
questions I got there, it made me realize that there is so much it's not aware of, so I had to go from the scratch. And it was so fascinating because they actually made the account then, and they started following. Some of them started getting opportunities, and it just warmed my heart because I realized that, oh my god, if I knew Twitter earlier, I would have gone on it too. So like, I came on Twitter by mistake and I found this one post, and it just made me like treasure land. It was like, oh, wonderland it is. So yeah.
Thank you so much. And just one question that I ask everyone here who is from a psychology background is how to get better at programming.
See, I wish I knew the answer. I'm trying to work on it too. I think something that I did was try to keep. I'm a reader, okay? So instead of videos, I read. And so there's this amazing book called Learning Stats with R. I think, yeah, that's a book. And it's this wonderful book where they are narrating things to you and they're telling you copy paste this code and see what it feels like. And now do it on your own and understand why you did this. And so I feel like that's how I am going about learning it. But I feel like I get still stuck and have to start all over again. So I should be asking this question to you all if you know how to help us out, because it's so tough. But I think it's important, and I think it makes your life a little easier later stages, not the earlier stages.
Makes sense. And lastly, I mean, this whole interview has been a great experience. But on a closing note, if you would want to give some advice to people who are in their bachelors right now, look, with their eyes, sparkle in their eyes, looking for for these opportunities, what would you suggest to them?
I would just say go for it. Don't let yourself stop because you feel like you don't have something. Even if you're a master student and you feel like, oh no, I'm in this field, but I want to go into cognitive science. Like a lot of people have this, ki, oh no, I'm from psychology. Do you think I can get into cognitive science? And I tell them, ki, it's an interdisciplinary field. Like there are parts of it everywhere, and it's not just cognitive science. You have linguistics, you have behavioral economics. Like these things can just combine together. And so read more about what you're interested in, and find resources. You can go through my website. I'm always here to help out, and go for it. Don't let yourself think, oh, maybe I will not get into it, because if I told myself that I will not get into Harvard, and if I didn't apply, I wouldn't have known. I just gave my best shot and I went for it, and now it's been a year. I'm at Harvard, and I look back, I'm like, damn, good that I applied. So feel the fear and do it anyway, because I literally have a tattoo that says that, and I feel like that's something I have gone ahead as well. So that's my best advice.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I mean, I feel honored to got this chance to interview you, and I think years later we will look back at it and we'll
Definitely.
smile about it, and hopefully
Yeah.
amazing stories lie ahead for you, and
Thank
things will
you.
keep on getting better and better from here on.
Thank you. I really hope so too, because I really hope I think it's time that we talk about these things more openly. And so I'm really happy to hear from you about it. That's great.
Thank you so much.